Here's a challenging multiple mini interview questions, including sample answers, and how I go from dissecting the question to coming up with an answer that the interviewers would love. Before I get started, I want to introduce myself. If in case you haven't watched any of my videos before, my name is Beruz Momeni. I'm the CEO and founder here at BMO. Welcome to another episode of our One Question podcast, where we tackle one really good topic for you guys, and we dissect it in many different ways just to get to make sure that you learn from the same sort of strategies that we teach our own students in our paid consulting programs. I just want to tell you, this is just pure content, no fancy music, no fancy visuals. I just want to make these videos for you so you get to do this on your own and learn from what we are learning in our paid consulting program. So let's go to that sample multiple mini interview question and answer. Now, multiple mini interview questions are usually based on some sort of a seemingly impossible scenario. Your job is to be able to answer the question in a way that tells the interviewer that, first of all, you have maturity of thought, you have good communication skills, and that you can make rational decisions under stress. Why under stress? Because if you're going to become a practicing professional, you're going to have to do all of that under stress. And the interview itself is a form of stress. Of course, you're stressed during your actual interview because you want to get into the program of your dream, and there's a lot at stake. So it is able to mimic that as well. So let's go through this sample question and answer. I'm going to read this, and then we're going to dissect this and go from there. So the question is, you are assumed that you're the director of a financially struggling hospital, and you are about to have to make some cuts in services and payroll. Essentially, you have to let people go, and community at large and the hospital is going to be impacted unless you secure a new source of funding. A cigarette company representative approaches you saying that they're willing to cover all of your costs for 5 years. You don't have to pay a penny back. All they want is for you to pay for or allow them to put in advertisement in your hospital. What would you do? So let's go through some bad examples of answers versus some good examples of answers and the strategy we got to employ. So the bad example would be for you to jump into a conclusion right away and say, you know what? It's a cigarette company. Absolutely not. I'm not going to allow them to do any such thing. This is bad for health. And, we're just going to tell them to get the heck out of the hospital. We're not going to deal with them at all. Why is that bad? Even though, yes, it's a cigarette company. Yes, they cause harm. It's all obvious. And obviously it would be weird because it's in a hospital setting. It just makes no sense. That's a bad answer because you have not done your due diligence. You have not asked the following questions. You didn't gather all the information you need to gather before you making a conclusion, which a mature adult does. So what are the questions you haven't asked? Well, what's the advertisement for? Where are the advertisements going to be? So that's like two major questions. The other questions you haven't asked is, well, who's going to be, what's the negative downside if you cannot secure funds and you're about to have to cut patient care? So what would be a better answer? Well, a better answer is, first of all, you got to gather some facts. So what are you going to do? You're going to have a private conversation with the representative of this cigarette company and ask him, hey, first of all, can we go over the terms? What are you trying to advertise? Are you trying to advertise cigarettes, or are you trying to advertise, I don't know, teddy bears for care? Are you going to use your brand name, or are these just going to be all anonymous? What is the purpose? So because, and then you do a if-then analysis. And that's how you should answer all these situational judgment test type questions. Always if-then. So you gather information, then if-then. So if the hospital representative tells me that, hey, this is just to advertise some really cute teddy bears that doesn't mention the cigarettes at all, then I don't think there's any problem. I'm going to go discuss with the board of directors. We're going to do pros and cons. The other aspect we have to obviously understand is that we don't want to be associated with the cigarette company. So how can we manage that? So that's one way you're now answering the question. Two, here's the other thing you could say. You could say that on the other hand, if the cigarette company says that they're going to advertise cigarettes, well, it's going to be a no-brainer. We don't want to have any part of it. We don't want to be associated with them because cigarettes have been shown over and over again that cause a significant risk to health. And that's contradicting to what our mission is as a hospital. So of course, I'm not going to accept that. So that was an if and then, and this is, I'm just giving you a very brief part of this. You could go very deep into this and show your maturity of thought, because regardless, what you have to do is you have to have a conversation with your board of directors to also see, hey, is there any other way we could cut costs? For example, is there some ways we could save on electricity by installing sensor detectors and LED lights, let's say? Can we get rid of some services and expenses that are non-essential? Can we raise funds by going to our local or national governments and asking for more money? Can we ask the community for donations or start some way to raise funds via a, let's say, a raffle, a competition? There is so many different ways, and that's the most important thing. I wanted to give you this example because it's very hard, but as you notice, there's so many different ways you could provide an answer. This is why a lot of people say there is no right or wrong answer. Actually, that's not right. There's many different right answers, many different wrong answers. The point is, there isn't just one answer to this. That is the point, and you want to show your maturity of thought. So once you've done all of that, you recap it by saying that, yes, these are the points I've considered. And if this is what's happening, I'll do that. If this is the other thing that's happening, I will do that. And my most important concern, which is one of the things you should always bring up when you're answering these type of questions, is you have to identify what's the most pressing issue. In this case, your most pressing issue is well-being and health care of your community, because that's what you're in charge of as a hospital and a hospital director. So once you've wrapped this up, you could say something like this. I could maybe wrap it all up and give you what I would consider a good answer, as we've seen our students use who have been successful and how we coach them. I would say something like this from beginning to end. Well, first of all, I don't know what the cigarette company wants. So what I have to do is first have a conversation with the cigarette company to determine exactly what do they want. Do they want to advertise cigarettes in the hospital, and is it going to be on hospital grounds? Or is it they want to advertise something else? And lastly, are they going to use their brand names or not, if it is something else? Then I'll take this information, go to our board of directors. I'm going to collaborate with the rest of our team to see what the best solution is for us, because at the end of the day, our first and foremost important thing is health care and providing care to the community at large that we serve, and we decide what's best. Now, if the cigarette company is, gonna cause any sort of a harm, and it's gonna show any sort of association with us and the cigarette company, this is not a good idea, because it's contradictory to what we're trying to do here as a hospital. Most likely, this is not going to be reasonable. Even if the cigarette company is going to advertise something that's unrelated and not harmful to our patients, because the association is going to give the wrong impression to our community, and it's going to seem as an endorsement, which we don't want. Instead, what we'll do is we'll brainstorm ideas to raise funds and cut costs. For example, to raise funds, we'll go to our local governments. We'll maybe start some sort of charities. Maybe we'll do some raffles and competitions. And to cut costs, we'll figure out what are some non-essential costs. For example, can we cut the cost of electricity? Can we cut the cost of non-essential staff and redundancies for the time being until everything's back up and running? I'm sure with some collaboration, we'll be able to find ways to cut costs and raise funds in order for us to meet the budget deficit and be able to provide care at the same or even better levels over time through collaboration and communication with others. This is what I would do in this scenario. And if you have any questions, by all means. So you also say, if you want to have any questions, a lot of times multiple mini interviewers have canned follow-up questions, or sometimes not canned, they're just trying to trip you. So they may trip you something as follows. For example, they could say, hey, what if this is the only source of funds? Cigarette companies, the only source of funds. What would you do? Well, then let's see what we're going to do in that case. Be like, okay, well, in that case, again, I have to consider the pros and cons. Is it reasonable for us? What is most harmful? Is it more harmful for us to be associated with a cigarette company? Or is it more harmful for us to cut some of our services and maybe allow some of the other local clinics and hospitals take over while we figure out how to cut costs other ways and raise funds other ways? That's probably the best case scenario. On the other hand, if we collaborate with our board of directors and we find a way that we could get a donation from the cigarette company without showing any evidence that we have been essentially collaborating with them or endorsing them, or maybe even finding a way to mention that cigarettes are not safe and should not be used, then there might be a way. Although I will doubt that a cigarette company would agree for us to advertise that cigarettes are not safe and they cause cancer or they're harmful, and still be willing to fund our hospital. However, these are some of the scenarios we'll explore, and we will find the one that makes most sense for our patients at large, and make sure what the least harmful impact is on the society, and we'll choose the one that makes more sense at the time. In my opinion, the best case scenario, even if the cigarette company is the only source of fund, it's probably best to find other ways to cut costs. So instead of raising funds and also getting help from our local healthcare systems, other clinics and other hospitals, while we try to figure out how to manage the budget so that we do not compromise the integrity of our healthcare system and the hospital at large. So you see, even in this case, when the interviewer tried to trip me over and gave me a seemingly impossible, you could still make a rational decision by doing your due diligence, communicating your thought process. And I try to do this as natural as I can. I try to not come to this episode with any sort of memorized or canned scenarios, just so that you see that even my thought process, because I want you to do the same when you're going through your own practice. Because in your actual interview, it's so important that you show your thought process. Now, I'm going to end this episode by giving you one more trick that really helps. If you ever get stuck, pause. You notice what I did there? I paused for a moment, actually, myself. If you ever get stuck, don't say ums or likes or try to say stuff that don't make sense. Just give it a pause. Gather your thoughts, then deliver the answer. That usually helps, making sure that you sound mature, you sound fluent, and it will reduce your nervousness significantly. That was it for me. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Thanks so much for watching this. BMO Nation, if you liked it, go ahead and share it with a friend. If you have any questions, ask them in the comment section, definitely for me. And don't forget to subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next episode. Talk to you soon.